Hi, I'm Nancy, and today we're going to talk about the first take homework process on how to prepare scenes. So we have a very specific system, and I want to walk you through some of the steps. One of the things that we do is, in this process, it's set to help you succeed at film and television audition material, but it also works incredibly well for any plays or monologues or anything else. But one of the challenges that comes with doing film and television audition material is the fact that you get very little information about what you're doing, and sometimes you can be going in for a lead part. Here's what's called sides. Sides are is the name for the material that they give you that you're going to audition for, the scenes that you're auditioning for, and this particular piece is a lead in a movie, but you can see, well, maybe you can't see, but they only give you 8 pages of information and you have to create all the rest. And sometimes with certain shows, they're extremely secretive, and more shows are getting that way where they don't give you a ton of information. We had one of our actors recently go in for the lead role in a Clint Eastwood movie, and it was like 4 pages. This is a lead role of information, and most of those 4 pages were blocked out because they didn't want any information about that movie getting out. So the actor had to put together all of the clues from very little information that they gave him in the film, and he had to add to it and create a lot of material to make it come alive for him. So we're going to talk about how to do that. And but first I kind of want to talk to you about one of our main premises as far as approaching acting. A lot of times you'll hear famous people talking about the roles that they play as this character, or you'll hear acting schools talking about how to build the character, and it's all about creating this other person that's not you. And it's all, sometimes I remember when I first started acting training, they would say things to me like, create like where this person was born, if they're smart or stupid, if they're short or tall, and you'd have all of these things that you'd answer about who this person was. And I was a very ambitious and hardworking person, so I wrote pages and pages about who this person was. But I realized it was really hard for me to connect with that, and I wasn't sure how to bring that into my scene. And it actually made it harder for me to make it come alive because it wasn't feeling real. It was feeling like somebody very different than who I was. So I want to talk about the fact that it's actually easier to relate to every scene that you do or every role that you do as never being a different person, as it's always being playing who you are. We have this saying at First Take that you are enough, meaning that who you are, your personality, and all that you are, that's the magic that you bring to a role. So that every role you're doing, you're bringing who you are to that role, the magic of who you are. In fact, if you try and leave who you are out of it, then you wind up with kind of like a very hollow and flat performance. I like to think about it as it's creating a human being is above our pay grade as far as making people goes, because people are really complicated. Even just trying to describe a person, let alone creating a person, is actually very difficult. So our main premise at First Take comes from something that Meisner said, which is that acting is living truthfully in imaginary circumstances. That means, like, the concept of that is you're living life honestly. You're not making that up. That's not fake. The way that you're living in a scene is absolutely true. But the imaginary part is not who you are, but the circumstance. So I want you to think about the scenes that you're approaching as being who you are, but the creative part is it's a different circumstance than what you're in right now in your life. And that actually takes quite a bit of talent and skill and many years to get good at, because you're trying to make something imaginary, the imaginary circumstances, just like real life. And that means developing your imagination muscle. Now, as adults, we've kind of learned how to turn off our imagination muscle, which is very reasonable, because as an adult, the skepticism kind of jumps in there to say, well, that's not real, and that's BS, and I'm not buying that. And those are all good things to learn as an adult. Whereas children, when we play, you might remember when you played as a child, that their imagination is really vivid. They don't have a hard time believing, like, I'm a policeman, I'm a fairy princess, or whatever it is that you wanted to believe when you were a child. So as an actor, you have to kind of grow your imagination muscle again, and everybody can learn and everybody can grow. We've even had many people that were students in our class that were very analytical kind of people that might be engineers or accountants, people that definitely focus much more on logic than on heart or emotion or imagination kind of a thing, grow into be phenomenal actors that would just take your breath away, that were really extraordinary in that. But it's something that grows, because at the beginning, making real an imaginary circumstance that's very easy, I always think of things like a situation like you're in line at Starbucks. That sounds like not super complicated. Most of us have been at a Starbucks or some other cafe ordering tea or coffee or whatever it is that you drink. And we have actually a scene like that in our acting class. And at the beginning, when you're first starting off as an actor, it's actually difficult to make that real, of just standing in a cafe, because you're not really at a Starbucks or at a cafe. You're in an acting class, or maybe an audition. You're auditioning and casting directors are looking at you and there's a camera. So it doesn't feel like you're at a cafe. So at the very beginning, it's hard to even make those most basic situations feel real. I was probably the worst of the worst when it came to this. I remember in one of my first acting classes, I so did not understand this concept for a long, long time. And they had asked me to do this exercise that I was just sitting at a bus stop. And I had the hardest time with that. Like, I didn't understand what they were looking for. I wanted to, show them what looking at a bus stop was. So I did things like, I was like, looking at my watch and kind of really, not being real at all, because it was hard for me to really believe or make real the idea that I was just sitting at a bus stop. And there wasn't much involved in that, but that was the struggle. But over the years, I've definitely grown in being able to imagine things and to let go with that. So be patient with yourself if it takes some time at the beginning. But the concept is you being who you are, but in a different life situation. Now, you always think of people like Meryl Streep or Daniel Day-Lewis, and you think, wow, what's amazing about them as actors is that they are like all these different people. They're both great at accents. Meryl Streep, my goodness, some of the roles that she's done, like Margaret Thatcher, was incredible, and Julia Childs, with her accent, etc. But one of the things that we don't really take time to notice is whether it's Meryl Streep or Daniel Day-Lewis, in every role that they do, they still are so much who they are, their humanity, their intellect, their personality, their sensitivity, etc. And if they didn't bring that, then the role would really be empty or hollow. But they do. Even Meryl Streep had a quote that she said that acting isn't about being somebody different, but it's recognizing what is similar in whatever she's playing first, finding herself in that. That's the premise of all great acting. So it's just easier, even in the way that you articulate it, to not look at it as I'm playing this other person, like I'm playing Sally and she's like this, to not even talk in those terms, but to be saying I'm like this, or to talk about it like it's you and not like it's another person. It helps you to connect with your heart. Now, the way that in First Take that we carry this out is very, very different from the Meisner technique. So I want to kind of walk you through step by step how to do that and how to make it your own and bring it to life. So the first part that I want to talk about, there's sort of, like I said, you get a script, you only have 8 pages, and you have to create a lot. You have to make up a lot that's added to the script. There's not enough information there for you to bring it to life with just those few pages. So you will need to add a lot, but before you get creative and start adding your own ideas to it, it's actually very important to take time in understanding what the writers have in mind. And so you really want to take a lot of time at the beginning to make sure that you're very clear about the clues that the writers gave you, about, I like to call this, in this process, building a skeleton, building a structure. Once you have the logic and understand the structure that you're creating, and that makes sense, and it has a very clear shape, then you can start adding the creative stuff, which I think of putting like flesh on the skeleton. It always makes me think of dinosaurs. So I don't know if you ever wondered this, but you ever wonder, like, well, how did they know what a dinosaur looks like? Because it's not like when the first, the paleontologists, they were digging up dinosaur bones, like that they got the whole skeleton of these dinosaurs all put in place, and you have this shape and etc. And there's certainly no flesh on these dinosaurs. So usually what they did is they found some bones, and it wasn't even the whole skeleton, and it certainly wasn't even put in place. So, I have no idea really what paleontologists do, but I have to imagine that a part of it is that they took the bones that they found out of the earth and found where they fit. So maybe they find some bones for the rib cage, and they say, oh, this kind of fits over here to make the rib cage. And then they find other, oh, this looks like, the legs, etc. And then they see what's missing in the skeleton, and then they fill that in because they get a sense of what the shape is with the missing pieces. And once they get a sense of the shape and the structure of it, then that's when they get a sense of maybe putting the flesh on it. So that's kind of the idea in building a scene. So first, it's important before you create anything to not interpret or add things to the script, but to just get clear as to what the writers have in mind. Because when you're auditioning, everything you create needs to fit with the story and needs to make sense and be logical. If you make creative choices that you're just trying to be creative with, then, and it doesn't fit with what the writers have, then you just kind of look foolish, quite frankly. You just, it looks a little goofy. So you want to focus on first on what the writers have in mind. So step one in this homework process is making a list of what I like to call the bones. The bones are the pieces of information that you need to know to act the scene. These are things that actually affect the acting part. So, for instance, things like it's a spring day, or there were roses on the mantelpiece, are probably not going to affect your acting very much. So those are not bones. Bones are things like certain statements, like, I regret ever meeting you, something like that. Or they've been married 15 years and were miserable, or things like that the script tells you, clues. It could be dialogue, or it could even be the descriptions of what's going on in the scene. But it's pieces of information that do affect the acting. So you make a list of these bones, and then you also make a list of questions. The questions are things that the scene doesn't tell you, the script doesn't tell you, but you need to know to act the scene. Like, it could be things like what happened when they first fell in love. What were the beginning clues that the wife thought that he was cheating on her? Things like that. And so usually you want to list all the questions of everything that you need to know, but that the script doesn't give you. The best way to do this is by asking open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are things that you can't answer with a yes or a no. Because usually any questions that you can answer with a yes or a no are kind of, you already have an opinion about if you think about it. Like, does he love her? You usually have an opinion. Oh, of course he does, or no, of course he doesn't, etc. Most yes or no questions, we have kind of already an opinion, so we tend to be a little bit more closed-minded. And so the idea is that you're going to make a list of all the things that you need to know that the script doesn't give you. And the goal is to ask them as an open-ended question. So this is kind of your step one in building the skeleton for your script. Now I want to continue with a few more things as far as how to build the skeleton. There are some other clues that you want to look at. One of the things is you want to look at page numbers when you're looking at a script, because oftentimes when they give you the sides for your audition, it represents several scenes over the course of the TV show or movie or whatever the project is. And so if you look at the top of the page, it will give you the page number. Normally, for everything except for sitcoms, you can figure that it's about 1 minute per page. So that gives you an idea. If it's page 5, it's at the beginning of the movie or TV show. And if it's a TV show, if it's page, 45, it's kind of wrapping things up if it's a 1 hour episodic. Or if it's a movie, if it's page 180, it's 2 hours into the movie. So it gives you kind of some idea as far as that's 3 hours, my math. Anyway, but you get what I'm saying. It's about a minute per page, so it tells you about how far along into the project it is. And so one of the things you have to do between one scene to another is figure out what's kind of gone on between the time period in that movie. And then the other thing too is you want to get a sense for what the genre is of what it is. It could be a drama or a comedy, but then within that there are different versions. There's a sitcom, which is a multi-cam format, which means that there's multiple cameras and they tape it in front of a studio audience, and it's the ones with the laugh tracks, and they have setups and punchlines, and those are double spaced. That's one of the reasons that you know that it's a multi-camera sitcom. Although a lot of comedies today are single camera, but they kind of have a feel for a multi-cam comedy, but they're very similar. So you want to kind of look at, when you're looking at a show, what kind of flavor does it have? Is it something like a crime thing, they're called procedurals. Those crime-solving shows are called procedurals. They could either be medical or crime or what have you. Those are called procedurals. So you kind of get a sense if that's what it is. If it's a comedy, is it dry, or is it kind of more campy, or what have you? What's the style? It helps sometimes to even think about, when you're looking at a script, it feels a little bit like, and fill in the blank. If it's a romantic comedy, there's certain formulas that happen over and over again. For instance, if you're dealing with a guy and a girl, and they are both heterosexual and they're hot and they hate each other at the beginning of the movie, what do you think is going to happen? Of course they're going to wind up together, because that's kind of just the formula of these things for romantic comedies. At the beginning, they're two gorgeous people. They can't stand each other because they're opposites, and so they're fighting like cats and dogs, and they wind up being the love. It's the love of their life, the person that they never expected, etc. So it kind of helps you when you're figuring out your clues to figure out the arc of the story, where it's going, how far into the story. So those are some of the other clues that you want to look at. Now, another thing that's very hard to do, but it's a habit you want to cultivate, is when you're looking at these scripts, you want to get in the habit of not visualizing or hearing the words. And I know that that's opposite of everything that you've learned as far as reading goes. It's opposite of everything that I've learned too. Because normally the joy of reading is you visualize what's happening. It helps bring it to life. But the reason you don't want to do this with your audition material, like picture it or hear the words in your head, is because you tend to get kind of tunnel vision, and you have an idea or an expectation of how you're supposed to play it. There's certain words or lines that might sound like they're very angry, and then once you do all the homework, which we're going to talk to you about how to build and put yourself in the circumstances, it doesn't sound angry at all. It could be coming from love, or, it's funny how the words could actually be coming from a totally opposite kind of a place if you look at them from your own perspective and from your own, eyes and point of view. So those are just a few of the other things when building the skeleton and the logic. Now, another thing, a couple of other things, is when you're looking at the bones and the clues, there's actually some programs that you can use, that you can download. There's some free apps that help you kind of map your brainstorming so that you can put the clues in kind of clusters. Sometimes I build the clusters when you're doing this skeleton, it's actually a great time to take notes. And so you could do it on an app, or you can handwrite it, what have you. But to put the clues in kind of categories. So it might be about the characters, like you might want to group them into characters, like these are all the clues about Mary, these are all the clues about John, and you kind of group them together. Sometimes, though, you also want to do things like group them chronologically, like if there's a lot of changes that happen over a course of time, you want to say, like, when they first met, this, and this happened, and then you put the clues. 2 years into the relationship, this, and this happened, and then you put those clues together. So there's different ways of grouping them. Sometimes you want to duplicate the clues that you have so that you can, we did one recently where there was a story of two brothers, and one, and their parents had divorced, and one took the side of the mom, and the other brother totally took the side of the dad, and the dad was now dying. And so some of the clues had to do with how those two brothers related to their parents. So a way to group them would be like, if you were one, you have one son and you say, this is all the ways he saw his mother. And then you'd see the other son, and this is all the ways he saw his mother. And then you might even want to have another grouping that was about the mom, saying this brother saw it this way, this brother saw it this way. So you can kind of duplicate the information, but put them in clusters, so it helps you to see patterns of what's consistent in them. So a few ways of how you want to take notes for building your skeleton, as well as laying out the questions. Now, once you do this, once you list all of the all of the bones and all of the questions, then you can begin to start answering the questions. And a big part of this is staying as open-minded as you can. It's a big key, actually, in acting, is staying open-minded, because you want to line up what you're thinking with what the writers have in mind and not impose your ideas on it that don't fit with what the writer has in mind. So for every question that you list, like let's say it's the story about the two brothers, that one whose parents were divorced, one totally took the mom's side, one took the dad's side, and is one of the questions might be, what happened, what were the things that happened to cause each brother to get there, from their perspective, like what caused the one brother to be so for the mom, what were the incidents that happened, how did that happen? There was another incident in that same script where the one brother, the older brother, ran away. And so it doesn't tell you how old he was, but there's a bunch of other clues that kind of give you the parameters of that age. So you can kind of say, how old was the brother, the older brother, when he ran away from home and wanted his dad to come chase him? And then, so that could be a question, etc. And so you write down every question of something that you don't, well, we already said that, all the questions. Then what you're going to do is come up with all the possible answers for every question. Usually it's good to push yourself to come up with 3 or more. The more possible answers you can come up with, the better. And you want to kind of keep them skeletal, but as many options as is possible, like why, what happened that led up to the couple breaking up, etc. What's the dad dying from, some of those things. And so you list all the options. He's dying of tumor, he's dying of cancer, he's dying, etc. So for every question you have, you list multiple answers, okay? Now once you do this and you have like 3 or more answers for every question, then the next step is to look at all of these options, and you're going to sort out which ones you're going to choose to use in creating your backstory about what's going on in the script. The way you pick the answers you're going to use is, number 1, the most important, is which fits with the script the best. You take a look, are there any of your possible answers that don't fit with the script, that there's something that contradicts it, that doesn't quite fit. Like for the brother, for instance, it talks about how long the parents were married. It said that the parents were married 15 years, and that at the time that the brother ran away, that they had already been separated. So you get a sense that as far as like the time period that happened, and then now the brother is attending college. So you kind of get a little bit of a background of what the possible age range is. So if you came up with something that the brother was 30, well, it doesn't fit with the with the part that the brother is currently in college. So those are some of the things as far as sorting through the material. Number one, you want to make sure that the answers you pick fit with the material. Now there could be a few answers that you picked that all fit or all could fit with the story. And so when that's the case, you can use these different options to move them into the stage of the homework, which we call the virtual reality, which I will explain to you in a minute, where you're using your imagination and adding details to make them real and believable to you, to make them come alive. This is putting the flesh on it. This is connecting your heart, your emotion. The first part, when you're doing the skeleton, is very analytical. It's kind of like when little kids say in school, they say, put your thinking caps on. It's deductive reasoning. It's very kind of Sherlock Holmesy. Then once all the logic is built from the story and you filled in all the bones that are missing, then the next part is connecting it to your heart and your emotion and who you are and breathing life into it. And the life is that you breathe into it is your own personal experiences and the virtual reality. That's the part of virtual reality that we will be talking about. So I want to talk to you about that here too in a little bit. So virtual reality, I want to kind of explain what this is. You don't want to write this part down because when you write, it kind of keeps you kind of in your head and analytical, and we want to make it messy and in your heart. So for the virtual reality part, this is the imagination part that you don't need to sit in a chair or at a desk to do. You could be in a shower, or driving in your car, etc., kind of ruminating on these things. And a way that I like to think of virtual reality is you're creating a memory of something that that you need to make real for the scene that didn't really happen, but you're adding enough details that it's just like it happened in real life, even though it didn't. And so the way that you do that when you're working on the virtual reality is by using as much from your real life as you possibly can. It should, just so you know what we're going for as far as the final effect, it should feel kind of like a dream. You know, you ever had, well, we've all had dreams where they're so vivid that when we wake up, it's kind of hard to imagine that they didn't really happen. You know, years ago, I was a smoker, and sometimes I have dreams that I smoked a cigarette, and I wake up and I'm like, oh my God, what did I do? I smoked a cigarette, and I freak out, and then I have to go, no, I didn't. Like, it takes me a while after I woke up to realize I did not do that. I did not smoke a cigarette. So you see how vivid dreams can be, that they're absolutely not real at all, but they can feel just like real life. That's kind of what you want to do with creating this virtual reality as far as the homework to make the scene come alive. You want to add details so that it feels like it really happened in your imagination work. So the best way to do that is to only make up things you have to make up, to not like make up irrelevant details that aren't, like, again, you're playing you know, you're not playing another person. So always use real people, real places, real situations as much as possible as you can from your real life. Like, for instance, I have an awesome husband, super in love, he's an amazing man. But if I'm doing a scene where my husband's cheating on me, I would use my husband. Now, mind you, of course that sounds absolutely ridiculous to me that he would cheat on me. That would be like, you know, really hard to make real. But the thing is if I'm trying to make something come to life and I'm using a fake husband cheating on me, quite frankly, I don't care if a fake husband cheats on me. It doesn't mean anything to me. There's no investment there. It feels fake. It feels just like a story. So instead, what I would use for my imagination work, and you can imagine it, and it's going to feel just as crummy as if it actually happened to you, but guess what? Once you come out of the scene and you go back to life, your life is totally fine. There's nothing wrong. Your husband didn't cheat on you. Life is great. So you see what I'm saying as far as like how much more powerful it is to use real people that you actually care about in your scene. And part of the experimentation with this is using different people and kind of in your imagination work and just kind of noticing how it affects you. Like, that's another thing that you want to grow in as an actor, is becoming more sensitive and more aware of how things affect you internally. Normally as adults, and I know this, I trained myself this way, we kind of oftentimes train ourselves to be pretty callous to what's going on internally, to our feelings, where we don't even notice. Like if something's bothering us, we just tend to like shove it down and go, don't pay attention, be a tank, truck it out, keep going. I mean, I definitely did that for many, many years of my adult life, and that made it challenging for me for a while as far as being an actor went, because I wasn't as connected to my heart, and you have to kind of learn to do that over time. So one of the things is when you're thinking of different things for your imagination that you're using, like you're trading different people in your mind and seeing how they work, is to just kind of notice how it affects you in your heart. You know, like notice like, oh, that's like, I don't care, I'm still disconnected, it doesn't do anything. Or you notice something and you're like, oh boy, you know, like trading out your fake husband for a real husband or what have you. The other thing is if there's something happening, like someone's breaking in your house and you read a scene, normally when you read a scene, when you picture it, you don't think of your own house. You picture the house, some fake house, some fictional house. That's what I do normally when I read. But to make it feel real, if somebody's breaking in your house, think about where they would break into your house, because we've all had thoughts like at different times of hearing bumps at the night and go, oh, who is that? What's going on? Is somebody breaking in? So it's using as many things that we understand from our real life. Now, part of this, to make the scene real, is using what I call bridges. Bridges are things that really happen to you that help you to understand a scene. Or another kind of bridge, there's two kinds of bridges. One of the things that actually happened to you. The second kind of bridge is something that didn't happen to you, but it's just easier for you to understand. So the first bridge, something that actually happened to you. The reason you use bridges, and you should use them for every scene, it's good to just keep thinking of bridges all the time when you're working on scenes, is the further away a scene is from your actual life, from anything that you've experienced. Like I was reading, one of the actors had a scene where they are like robots and they're being tortured, and obviously that's like totally opposite most people's life experience. Or you're breaking into a bank. There's another one of people robbing a bank. Now, come on, like that's hard to imagine, right? I mean, it's kind of hard, like really making it real life that you're breaking into a bank. So anytime you've got something that's really far out there from your imagination, especially when you're a newer actor, well, actually, when you're a newer actor in my class, you shouldn't try hard scenes like that. You should be starting with really, really easy scenes, like being at Starbucks, or being, asking somebody out on a date, or going on a job interview, or things that are kind of easier like that. But as you grow as an actor, part of it is like learning to imagine things that are more and more and more difficult, more and more remote from your actual life. The further away the scene is from something you've experienced, the more bridges you need to use. And sometimes you might need to use like 100 or hundreds of bridges to try and understand a scene if it's really, really different from your life, like a vampire saving the world or something like that. But let me give you some examples of how you would use them. One is, let's say, a bridge for robbing a bank. We were just talking about that in class the other day. We had some people, and thinking about really breaking into a bank is kind of pretty far-fetched. So it might be just even starting with something, anything that you've thought of as far as committing a crime before. Maybe you actually haven't done anything or done anything bad, but like that. But you would think about crimes maybe you have thought of. Have you ever seen a movie and saw like a crime caper and you thought, ooh, you just think, oh, I wonder if I could get by with that. I remember there was some movie about a crime where they stole like the half a cent thing, and I was like, oh, that's kind of a cool idea, So maybe I would start with something like that might seem a little bit more plausible. So that would be an example of a bridge of something that never happened to me, because I never actually, did that crime, but I thought about it, and it feels a little bit more easy for me to understand than actually breaking into a bank and robbing it. Another thing would be that I would use for a bridge that did happen is when I was a kid. It's a horrible thing. But I went through a little phase of taking money out of people's purses, which is, really awful, horrible thing to do. One of my darker days as a child. But just sort of thinking about what that was like, of if you can remember. Sometimes it's sort of hard to remember way back when some of these things happened, of what that was like to do something that you feel maybe a moral conflict with, that's scary, that you could get caught, etc. And mind you, that's very different from robbing a bank, but at least some of the elements are there that help you to understand it. And so once you step into situations you've really experienced and remembered what they're like, or you create something that's similar for you, then it kind of helps you to understand the scene more and more. A few more things as far as the virtual reality that I want to point out before we move on to the next part of the homework is usually when you're creating the bridges, or not just the bridges, but the virtual reality. Bridges help you to understand the virtual reality. Virtual reality is when you go from the bridges that you're thinking about into what the actual scene is about. Let's say for the two brothers, I'll go back to that scenario. The two brothers where their parents were divorced, the dad is dying, and one brother is staying to take care of the dad, and the other brother had moved away. So part of how you want to do this is you want to create the memories. Usually it's best to do them chronologically, but to spend the most amount of time with with the parts of the story that you need the most to make the scene come alive. And again, as we said, you want to use real people, real places, etc. For this. So you'd use your real parents, your real mom and dad, and you would experiment. If your parents are happily married, then you'd think about if they split up. If you are playing the brother that's closest to the dad and you're really closest to your mom, then you would just make the switch a little bit by using the same ideas from you being closer to your mom to your dad. Like as if you felt the way you do about your mom, about your dad. That's how you kind of switch from real life into the scene to make it real. So that's how you go from a bridge into the virtual reality. And then usually, like I say, you want to create the memories, these memories that are going to be as vivid like a dream. Chronologically is usually the best way to go. And again, spending the most amount of time with what you need for what's going on in the scene. During this scene, it was about saying goodbye to the dad because he's dying. And so you definitely want to spend the most amount of time focused on, for both brothers, about how they feel about the dad and how they feel about each other and how they feel about the dad dying. So that would be where the most amount of time would go. So the next piece that I want to give you before we get into our next exercise that helps you with homework is you need an objective. An objective is a very common term. I think all acting systems kind of use the concept of objectives. And we just have a little different way of wording it. But I'll tell you what an objective is. An objective is what you want from the other person in the scene. And you should have an objective for each scene that you do. And it should be something that you personally would want given that circumstance, because again, it has to do with it's you. It's not what this woman, like if I'm playing Mary, I'm not thinking, what do I think Mary would want given this circumstance? It would be, what would I, Nancy, want if I was in this situation? So the objective could be like just thinking about whatever that scene situation is. Like the one with the two brothers, one brother is trying to get the other brother to say goodbye to his dad, to have a time of letting go, of recognizing his dad is dying and saying goodbye. And so the objective in that scene would probably be, if I was the one brother, is I want to get my brother to say goodbye to our dad. That would be the objective. So it's what do you want at the end of the scene. The objective isn't what do you want for your whole life. It's not what do you want for the whole movie, but it's at the end of the scene, what do you want from the other person that you're in the scene with? So you want to make it very specific. A really good friend of mine who was a casting director for many years and also was an actor before that for many years, she liked to say that it's good to think about it as your Disneyland answer. Like if, you know how Disneyland, there's Disneyland, everything's perfect in Disneyland. You know, the birds are chirping, the sun is shining. And so she would say at the end of the scene, what's the picture of how, if it was you, you'd like it to turn out at the end of the scene? So you first paint the picture, you know, at the end of the scene, I want my boyfriend to drop to his knees and give me a ring and tell me he's always loved me and he wants to spend his life with me forever and ever. And so the objective is, I want to get him to propose, you know, maybe that's your objective. So you just think about, at the end of the scene, what do you want from the other person? But sometimes it helps to first kind of paint the Disneyland picture, and then once you have the picture, you kind of boil it down into, the wording needs to be, I want to get them, the other person, to, and then fill in the blank. I want to get them to love me. I want to get them to marry me. The objective is never what you're doing to the person, because that keeps you self-focused. One of the things in acting that keeps you not watching yourself, because that's one of the things that kills acting, is being aware of what you're doing, being self-focused, is being focused on what you're getting from somebody else. It takes you from not thinking about you, like, how am I coming off? How do I sound? Is my face weird? Do I sound weird? You know, if you're thinking about that, and you're getting all kind of self-focused, it makes the acting flat and boring. But if you're thinking about what am I getting from them, then it makes it alive. So that's why objectives are important, and you don't want to phrase them about, I'm trying to humiliate him, or, you know, just not about like, I'm berating him. Like, that's not an objective. That's something you're doing to the other person, you know, kind of a thing. So anyway, it's what you're getting, not what you're doing. So that's a little bit about objective. Now, the last part of the exercise, or the last exercise that we do in class, that I ask every person when they're doing a scene to do after their scene. So when you're first starting with First Take for a long, long time, what happens is you do the scene one time, and then after you do the scene, I say, okay, now give me your improv monologue. Your improv monologue is an exercise we do in class, that what you're doing is you are taking all the homework that you did, all the stuff you created and made real, and it touched you and triggered things inside of you, and you made up all this kind of details. Like, the virtual reality should be so much information that you could probably tell me 2 hours of stuff that you created on a scene for your virtual reality. That's a lot of details. But the improv monologue is where you take that big amount of information and you boil it down to like 5 or 10 minutes of the most juicy, significant stuff that you need the most for when you walk into an audition. So it's the stuff that if you were going into like a very emotional audition in particular, it's the stuff that you would refresh yourself with right before you walk in. Like, we had, just to give you an example, one of our actors went in, well, actually she booked a part. It was her first TV audition ever, and she booked it, and it was a guest star. It was a pretty beefy part for a big television show, actually. It's something that ran for many, many years. It was one of the biggest hits in television and won lots of awards. So she booked this show, first audition, and the role was that she was a lesbian, and her girlfriend had just punched her in the mouth, and she's in the hospital having to explain what happened and why her face is beat up like that. And so it was interesting because she had been in my class for a while, so we worked on the scene before she went in for the audition. And I said, okay, give me your improv monologue. And she started talking to me about how in real life she was an attorney. She was a pretty smart, sophisticated kind of gal. And she was heterosexual. So she kind of made her improv monologue at first to be like another person, because she was thinking, oh, this person that got punched, it wouldn't be a smart person, it would be a stupid person. So she made up that this person was like a blue collar, you know, actually she made up that the girl was a waitress. She's like, the girl's a waitress and blah, blah, blah. And she was treating it like it's another person, not her. And so I talked to her and said, well, what does being a waitress have to do with anything? Like, if you're in a hospital because the person you're in love with beat you up, does it really matter what you do for a living? I mean, how does that affect the scene? You know, it doesn't have anything to do with it. Like, what is going on in that moment for you? is your brain. Just think about it in real life. Like, that's the way that you figure out if you're on track or not, is you think, what would this be like in real life? In real life, if you're in a hospital and your face is beat up and the doctors are asking you what happened, and then in the scene she's explaining that it's her fault and that she triggered it, which happens a lot in abuse cases. So she was kind of replaying what happened. She was like, I knew my girlfriend was tired coming home from work. I shouldn't have bothered her. I was putting too much pressure on her when she came home, etc., and blaming herself for being hit. And so the improv monologue would have to be with what happened, what were the words exchanged, and you want to use stuff that really stirs in your heart with things and relationships. Use anything in past relationships. We've all had relationships where people said things that were really hurtful to us, that we felt like we deserved them, or that we felt like we weren't good enough, or things like that. You want to connect with things like that, and then think about, like, oh, when she punched me, that I was asking for it, that somehow I was responsible. So you want to get that should be kind of the juicy part of your improv monologue that you would be talking about, is what happened right before you came into that hospital, and what it would be like being in a hospital, having people ask you questions about your relationship and someone you love, and how it's a shameful situation to be in. So you'd want to create things that kind of feed that and that moment. So the improv monologue would be the juicy moments, 5 to 10 minutes worth of stuff that you would need right before you went into an audition, that's super connected, that means a lot, that has high stakes, kind of a thing. And it's kind of like, it shouldn't be polite, it should be messy. It's kind of like if you have a best friend that you vent to, that you can just, if you have friends that you're super honest with and you don't like clean it all up for them, you kind of just vomit it out, or it's venting. An improv monologue should be that. It should be you, shouldn't feel forced. It should be very emotionally connected, but without forcing the emotion. It should be that you're talking about details that evoke an emotion without you even trying. That it just kind of does things for you. And that's the exercise of the improv monologue, which you'll be seeing quite a few examples of that in class. So be prepared. That's the exercise that we do after every scene. Now, the last thing that I want to say is, once you have prepped all of this, you've prepped the logic, the skeleton, you've added details to fill in the questions, you've asked all the questions, you've picked the questions that first make the most sense with the script, and then the other ones, I forgot to kind of tell you this. You know how I said that you pick the answer that fits with the script the best? But if you have like 2, 3, or even 4 answers that all fit with the script, then the way that you choose which answer you pick is when you're doing your virtual reality, which answer is easiest for you to make real and make believable. That's your next priority. And then the last priority, but it's also important, is what's the thing that helps make the stakes the highest. What stakes are what you have to gain or to lose. So that's what's at stake. So that's your last. So priorities: number 1, what fits the script the best; number 2, what is the easiest for you to make believable; and number 3, what has the highest stakes, in that order. Okay, so now you've done all your homework, did your script, now your skeleton, filled in the bones. You did your virtual reality, which is your big giant story that you made up lots and lots of details where you could talk for 2 hours. And then you did your improv monologue. So you've got that all prepped. You're emotionally connected to it. Then if that's all in place, then the scene should be a free fall. You don't need to rehearse your scene and figure out how it should all go. The way you work on a scene is not to look at it and go, oh, I should be angry here. Sometimes there's even techniques where people tell you, like, to write down what you're going to do for each beat, like be angry here, be happy here, and they kind of give you a result of what to do. It doesn't really make for good acting. I can see it. It looks like kind of what I like to call paint by numbers acting. You ever seen those paintings that the paint by numbers, where they have like the little outline and it tells you what color Well, it doesn't really look like a real painting. It looks really obvious and, looks kind of crummy, quite frankly. So it's like when people do that with their acting, where they pre-plan what they're doing, like I'm doing this here and that there, etc. It looks kind of like paint by numbers acting. You can kind of see the shifts. They are obvious. They don't have lots of colors. They're not multifaceted. But if you make a circumstance, the situation, so real and so vivid, and you bring who you are to it, it will have so many colors. It'll have many facets. It'll be interesting. It's not like you have one emotion. It's not like you're angry. It's like there's maybe 100 things going on at once, and you can't artificially create that. But if you make it real and allow yourself to free fall and just be in the experience moment to moment, to listen, to be like thinking about what you're getting from the other person and be listening and present, you're going to have tons of cool things, and you'll be right on the money every time. You'll do an amazing performance. It'll be riveting. It'll be exciting. And anyway, so that's kind of it. It's a little overview of the first take method. I know that that's a lot. I don't expect you guys to have it all figured out. I want you to do the best, do a lot of homework. That's the other thing too. I want you to do a volume of homework. It's better to do a ton of things wrong and have lots of homework. You'll learn so much faster than saying, hey, I didn't really understand this, so I didn't do very much. If you're really tentative and kind of, being super cautious and because you're afraid to fail, it's going to slow you down as far as your growth. But if you just do a ton of stuff, even if it's wrong, you're going to learn really fast and you'll be an amazing actor before you know it, and you'll be growing really rapidly. So anyway, I'm here to help you. I'm glad you're on board with First Take, and I know it's going to take time. We hit you with a lot. Don't expect you to be the master of any of this, but just do your best at trying to do what you think I said today. Lastly, I want to talk a little bit about cold reading technique, because for film and television, you're always going to be, when you're auditioning, reading from your sides, from the script, which is a little bit different. So you have to kind of learn how to use this and how to integrate it into your scene in a way that's really, really comfortable. So you don't, most of the time when you're auditioning, you're always going to have your script in mind. So here's what you need to do. You need to practice the craft. There's an art of looking down at your script, grabbing a line, looking up, and saying the words so that you're not stuck in your page. Because it doesn't, you're auditioning, it's going to be taped on camera, so they have to see your face, they have to see your eyes, they want to see you engaged, and you can't even really listen or be present with the other actor if you're stuck in your script all the time and your head is down here looking at the words. So it's something you need to practice. Even if you practice like 10 minutes a week, you will get so much better at this. It does not take tons of time, just being faithful at spending a few minutes every week at this. Now, the way you practice, you can don't practice with your own scene and your own script. You could practice with a script that you would never do. Like if you're a woman, you could practice by reading a man's role, or a man reading a woman's role. But it's kind of good to actually practice using a script. You can practice though using a magazine or a newspaper, etc. But part of it is you need to learn how to scroll, where you have your thumb where your next line of dialogue is all the time, so that if for some reason you lose your place, like even if you're memorized, then your thumb is always where the line is, so that you can stay connected with it. And so the way you practice is you look down, your thumb is there where your next line is supposed to be, and as soon as you're done speaking, you move it to your next line of dialogue. But you want to stay listening to the other actor at all times. You don't want to, like what a lot of actors do is they read. How did you, they read, they look down, they grab it. How did you hear they were missing? And then they go right back to their page. They don't even listen. See, I just asked a question. How did you hear they were missing? If I don't stay for the answer, if I'm from the person that I'm in the scene with, and if I'm not going, how did you know that they were missing? If I do this, how did you know they were missing? Do you see? That doesn't allow me to hear anything or be present. So it's very important that you're never looking at your page especially at the beginning when the other actor is talking, because you want to listen so you can stay present in the scene. But the thing that you want to do is practice scrolling with your thumb, as well as practice looking down, grabbing as much dialogue as you can, and looking up and saying the words. So it's, I had my eye on Bennett Maxwell for a long time. See, that's all that I could grab right now. But if you practice it all the time, you've got to understand these people. See, I just grabbed it. I don't know the script at all, but I'm not the greatest at cold reading anyway. But they're weird, unpredictable. See, I just looked down for a second, but my thumb was there. This could all end up being nothing. So you just look quickly, grab the line, look up, say it, so that you can stay connected to the other person in the scene. So you want to kind of practice that. Practice grabbing a line, looking up and saying it instead of, and basically the rule is you don't get to talk while your eyes are on the page. The only way you can talk is when your eyes are up from the page. And if you practice that, you'll get better at cold reading over time. And also you need to practice the scrolling thing of moving your thumb from one line to the next line. The other thing that you can do is traditionally scripts are stapled here in the top left. That's usually how you get them from the casting office. But another thing, this is a little bit awkward, like when you're reading a script, because then you've got to turn it over that way to read. So it's a little bit harder. This is something that you can try if it's more comfortable for you, is to have the staple in the bottom left-hand corner, right like this, and then you hold it in the top left hand where it's loose, see? And then see, you're reading it and it just, you just drop it like that, you see, and then you have to do less with the paper. You see how it's easy to just let that drop? I don't know if you can see it the way that I have it, but yeah. But that's another thing that can kind of help you to make it easier. Another thing when you're using your script is you want to make sure it's not in your face, you know, so it doesn't block you from the camera. If you're reading with somebody and the camera's there, you want to hold your script this way. You don't want to hold it this way, because if you hold it back here and the camera's there, I'm going to be turning back here to see it. Whereas if I hold my script this way, I'll be maybe, you know, reading with somebody, but I'm looking and my face is still connected to the camera. So those are things that you kind of want to be in the habit of doing. There's also creative things like you shouldn't be bringing props in at all to a scene, but if you need a notebook, use your script and act like that's a notebook. Use it that way. If you want to use your script as a microphone, you could do it that way. Excuse me, hey, pay attention, everyone, or, you know, like that. There are creative ways that you can use the script in the scene that can help you. And so part of what you want to practice with is how to use the script. In the meanwhile, before you get really good at cold reading, though, what you can do short term is after all your homework, after you do your your virtual reality improv monologue, all of that, when you're totally done, then what you can do is you may memorize your scene, but make sure that you memorize it monotone as opposed to memorizing it in a vocal pattern of how to act it. Like, you don't want to do, I think the real question is, and so every time you read that, you're going, I think the real question is. Do you see how you get a vocal pattern and you have a kind of tunnel vision of how you perform it? So the way that you want to memorize it, if you memorize it after your homework is done, if you're memorizing, is monotone. I think the real question is, you see, because I would never really act it that way, so that's not a risk. It's not stuck in any kind of patterns. So worst case, that's what I would do at the end if you need to memorize before you get really awesome at cold reading, but you should be practicing your cold reading every day.